That's the $64,000 question.
And I'll repeat the question for the people at back. She's wondering if you can talk about what you were just mentioning, the radio, the sound design of the film.
One of the first things that Edward really clued into and got kind of jazzed on was the sound mnemonic, the idea of sound being a really big character. Actually, a sound effect, you know, almost representing, you know, some kind of divine inspiration. And you know, that can be a really cheesy idea. A lot of people could read that and go, and I love that Edward went, no, there's something really cool about that. And he sort of, he took it beyond that to discussions with other people, one of them being the band Radiohead and Johnny Greenwood, who we both really loved as a composer. He did There Will Be Blood, and he did a brilliant job on that. And in their discussions, though, about this, and you know, it was more, I guess, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I guess it was a conversation of what you were doing and what you're into, and they kind of got attracted to it and ended up giving me, they weren't available to do the score, but they gave me a lot of stuff, that the experiments, offcuts of things they couldn't use on their albums. And it was like a treasure trove of, you know, 10-second, 15-second, 20-second little grabs of experiments that were really weird soundscapes. And I used a lot of them in the film. And they gave me sort of freedom to mess around with them. And I worked with one of their engineers. But then they weren't available, and I had like kind of half a score. And so then I encouraged another guy who I really liked, John Bryan, who also wasn't available, to kind of help out. And you know, both Johnny and John Bryan, you know, I had this idea that I wanted to use an instrument that was of Jack's world, and got the idea of using a pipe organ, a church organ. And they both, Johnny Greenwood did his in Oxford in the UK, and John Bryan did his, I think, in East LA, you know, recorded on a pipe organ, just did experimental stuff. And so, you know, it was so, putting this different stuff together and then layering it with effects and layering it with radio stuff, that it became less of a composition and more of kind of a soundscape that no one really wants to take credit for, in a way. Because they don't, including me, like it's such a kind of collaborative thing that, you know, it is what it is. We're all really happy with it, but you know, I think these guys are kind of like, well, you know, we don't feel right.
One interesting thing I think that I'd say was particularly unusual on this to me, and was that, you know, we're all used to, you know, you usually have to get your picture cut locked before you get deep into sound design and music and stuff, but usually you're able to come up with some sort of a temp. You know, you're able to come up with things to evoke what you're trying to indicate in a moment. And I would say, as much as anything I've ever worked on, in the post, when John was sort of in the cave with it and then asked me to come in and take a look at things, there was no way, we just didn't have the resources or the time, there was no way to create a temporary sound design. And yet you had a film that relied completely on this idea to play. So it left John in, I think, a very strange and vulnerable position in a way, which was there was no way to test the movie out on anybody, because you can imagine what this movie would be like without any sound on it. And so as much as I've seen in a long time, it really was kind of a process of, like, there was no way to run it in front of people. There was no way to get a beat on what anyone else thought of it. It was kind of just like, do we like it? Like, let it fly. Like, it was very unusually introspective, sort of self-reliant process for John, I think, because there was just no way to vet it.